The Golden Armada blotted out the stars above Mars, their obsidian hulls gleaming like knives in the sunlight. 1,000 Zorathian dreadnoughts formed perfect geometric patterns, their gravity drives distorting space itself as they took position. On the bridge of the flagship Worldbreaker, Admiral Krazak adjusted his ceremonial pauldrons and activated the fleet. Wide broadcast, his 4 eyes narrowed as the holographic feed connected to every human station in the Sol system. People of Earth, his voice boomed through translated speakers, the harmonics making windows vibrate in lunar outposts. Your system now belongs to the Cosmic Empire. Surrender your orbitals within 12 cycles or be erased from galactic records. In Lunar Command's war room, Captain Vance watched the feed with his arms crossed. The Zorathian's golden armor reflected the dim emergency lights as the alien continued listing demands. Around Vance, junior officers scrambled to analyze the fleet's composition, their faces pale under the flickering holoscreens. "Sir," whispered Lieutenant Cho, her fingers flying over a tactical display. "Their smallest ship outmasses our heaviest cruiser 3-to-1. Energy signatures match their planetary assault configuration from the Crescent Purge." Vance didn't blink. "Get me the diplomatic corps, now." The human negotiators appeared on screen within minutes, their formal suits looking absurdly fragile against the backdrop of Zorathian warriors. Ambassador Petrov adjusted his tie with trembling fingers. "Admiral Krazak, surely we can discuss terms that don't involve..." Laughter erupted from the Worldbreaker's bridge, a chorus of guttural clicks and hisses. Krazak's mandibles spread wide. "Terms? Your pitiful species hasn't earned terms. Your last wars were fought with chemical explosives and primitive kinetics." The alien leaned closer to the screen. "We've conquered 17 systems since your ancestors were swinging from trees." On Mars, the orbital defense platforms powered up their interceptors. The Zorathian fleet responded instantly. A single capital ship fired its main cannon, the violet beam slicing through 3 platforms before they could raise shields. Molten metal rained down on the red planet's surface. "That," Krazak said calmly, "was 1% output. Your turn." Vance's fist came down on the console. "They're testing our response time. Order all civilian transports to the Lagrange shelters." He turned to his XO. "What is the status of Blackwatch?" "Still hidden in the asteroid belt, sir. Admiral Singh reports all ships at battle stations." A new alert flashed. Vance's blood turned to ice. "They're hitting New Halifax." The colony world's distress beacon activated just as the first kinetic strikes hit. Satellite feeds showed the capital city's dome shattering under the bombardment, atmosphere venting into space in a silent scream. Zorathian drop pods followed, their shock troops fanning out through the ruins with plasma casters ready. "Sir." Comms Officer Ruiz looked up from his panel, Governor's last transmission. "They're executing anyone who resists. It is a slaughterhouse down there." Vance's knuckles whitened around the edge of the tactical table. The hologram showed the Zorathian fleet shifting formation, their weapons charging for the jump toward Earth. He tapped his personal comm. "Admiral Singh, execute Contingency Hydra and wake up Warlock." On the Worldbreaker, Krazak studied the tactical updates with satisfaction. His second, in command, Sub-Admiral Grex, clacked his armored fingers together. "No fleet response, minimal orbital defenses, just as intelligence predicted." Krazak leaned back in his command throne. "Because they have no fleet worth mentioning. These humans rely on their pathetic planetary shields and negotiation skills." He gestured toward the burning colony on the view screen. "Clean this up and plot the course for Earth. I want their surrender before local nightfall." Deep in the asteroid belt, the USN Titan's fist powered up its experimental drive. Captain Vance watched the Zorathian fleet's trajectory update on his private screen. His reflection in the glass showed a man 20 years older than his file photos. "Admiral." Lieutenant Cho hesitated at his shoulder. "The civilian council is demanding to know our response plan." Vance didn't turn around. "Tell them we're following standard first contact protocols." "But sir," their lieutenant. His voice could have cut diamond. Those lizards out there think war is about big guns and shiny armor. The first alert chimed from the Titan's Fist's navigation array. Vance finally smiled. They don't know what human war looks like yet. The molten craters of New Halifax still glowed orange as the last Zorathian dropships lifted off. Commander Vexis watched from the bridge of his dreadnought, mandibles clicking in satisfaction. The human colony had burned beautifully. His tactical display showed nothing but wreckage and radiation spikes. "Scan complete," reported his sensor officer. No survivors, minimal orbital defenses destroyed, primitive resistance encountered. Vexis flexed his armored claws. As expected, these soft-fleshed creatures can't even protect their own nests. He turned to the holographic projection of Admiral Krazak. "We proceed to Earth." Krazak's golden carapace gleamed under the bridge lights. "Leave a garrison to watch the ruins. The rest of the fleet jumps in 6 cycles. Let the humans see what happens to those who defy the Cosmic Empire." Deep beneath New Halifax's shattered surface, Lieutenant Mara Cole adjusted her radiation hood. The underground bunker's air stank of sweat and burning insulation around her. 50 Marines checked weapons in the dim red emergency lights. "All comms dead?" she asked. Corporal Ruiz tapped his wrist display. "Nothing gets through their jamming, but the seismic sensors worked. They're leaving." Cole grinned. "Right on schedule." She pulled up the holographic map only her squad could see. Blue dots marked hidden missile silos. Red lines showed underground tunnels leading to the colony's abandoned fusion plants. Sergeant Cho tightened the straps on his backpack nuke. "They really didn't scan below 20 meters. Arrogance," Cole said. "They saw the surface burn and assumed victory." She tapped her earpiece. "Blackwatch Actual, this is Spectre. 1, package is delivered, awaiting your play." Static hissed for 3 seconds before Captain Vance's voice crackled through. "Confirmed, Spectre. Hold position until the fleet jumps, then light them up." Above the ruins, the Zorathian garrison ships settled into patrol patterns. Their energy shields shimmered, visible proof of technological superiority. The lead destroyer's commander lounged in his command throne, watching heat signatures fade in the cooling wreckage. "Boring assignment," he muttered to his weapons officer. "The real glory will be at Earth." His console beeped. A minor power fluctuation in the colony's ruined fusion grid, probably debris settling. Under his ship, the abandoned fusion plant reached critical mass. The explosion tore through the Zorathian destroyer like paper. Secondary detonations rippled across the garrison fleet as hidden missile silos erupted from beneath the molten crust. Railgun rounds punched through unshielded engine nacelles. Vexis's dreadnought lurched as the shockwave hit. "What in the void? Colony detonation!" screamed his sensor officer. "No! Multiple launch sites. They're firing from underground." On Lunar Command, Admiral Vance watched the fireworks through a dozen stolen Zorathian sensor feeds. Dr. Lian Zhao stood beside him, her fingers dancing across a holographic keyboard. "They're scrambling fighters," she noted. "Let them." Vance zoomed in on the lead Zorathian cruiser, now venting atmosphere from 3 gaping holes. "Warlock, are we in?" The tactical AI's voice echoed through the command center. "Zorathian encryption broken, feeding false sensor data to remaining ships. They believe it is a reactor meltdown." Vance smirked. "Good. Keep them confused." He opened a channel to the hidden Blackwatch fleet. "All units, execute Scorched Void protocol. I want their fuel depots gone before they realize this was an attack." 1,000,000 kilometers away, Cole's squad emerged from tunnels beneath the colony's spaceport. The surviving Zorathian troops were too busy putting out fires to notice the human figures moving through the smoke. Ruiz planted charges on a grounded dropship. "They really don't look down, do they?" Cole primed her last backpack nuke. "Nope. And they definitely don't look inside their own supply crates." She slapped the device onto a stack of ammunition containers marked "Safe for Transport." Cho checked his scanner. "Fleet spooling up warp drives. They're leaving." "Perfect." Cole tapped her earpiece again. Spectre, 1 to all units. Party favors set. Let's vanish before the fireworks. As the last Zorathian ships jumped toward Earth, New Halifax's ruined spaceport erupted in a chain reaction of explosions. The garrison fleet's fuel reserves went up like a stellar flare, lighting the dead colony with false daylight for 3 glorious seconds. On the bridge of the USN Titan's Fist, Vance watched the distant fireball through the forward viewport. His comm officer turned, eyes wide. Sir, we're detecting warp signatures. Zorathian reinforcements just aborted their jump near Saturn. Zhao laughed. They're pulling back after 1 colony. Vance leaned forward, hands clasped behind his back. No, Doctor, they're not running from a colony. He pointed at the tactical display where the Blackwatch fleet's icons blinked to life. They just realized we let them take New Halifax. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Vance tapped the console, opening a fleet-wide channel. His voice was calm, cold. All ships, battle stations, they'll come for Earth next. He smiled. Right where we want them. The Zorathian armada approached Earth in perfect formation, their golden hulls glinting like a swarm of predatory insects. Admiral Krazak's flagship led the vanguard, its main cannon already pulsing with energy. On the bridge, Zorathian officers monitored their scanners with bored confidence. Energy signatures nominal, reported Tactical Officer Vrel. No defensive activity detected. Krazak leaned back in his command throne. As expected, these humans rely on pathetic orbital platforms. Target their capital city first. Let them watch their world burn from... Alarms shrieked across the fleet. What is that? Krazak roared as his holographic display lit up with thousands of incoming projectiles. From the pockmarked surface of Earth's moon, hidden railgun batteries emerged from camouflaged bunkers. Each massive barrel glowed white, hot as it unleashed hypersonic slugs the size of ground cars. The projectiles crossed the distance in seconds, punching through Zorathian shields like they weren't even there. The lead battleship Dreadclaw exploded in a silent fireball, its golden hull splitting apart like rotten fruit. Then another, and another. Evasive maneuvers. Krazak bellowed as his flagship shuddered from a near miss. Where are these attacks coming from? On Lunar Command's buried control center, Captain Elias Vance watched the carnage unfold through a bank of monitors. Around him, technicians cheered as railgun batteries cycled for another volley. Sir, their fleet is scattering, reported Lieutenant Cho. Just like Warlock predicted. Vance allowed himself a grim smile. Good, keep them dancing. Deep within the lunar complex, the artificial intelligence known as Warlock hummed with activity. Its quantum processors analyzed the Zorathian fleet's movements in nanoseconds, predicting their every panic-driven maneuver. Primary target acquired, Warlock announced in its calm, androgynous voice, initiating electronic warfare protocol. Across the Zorathian fleet, targeting systems suddenly went haywire. Weapons locked onto friendly ships. Navigation computers displayed impossible trajectories. The Blade of Zorath, a heavy cruiser, accidentally unleashed its full broadside into the flank of its sister ship. On the bridge of the Titan's Fist, Dr. Lian Zhao watched the chaos through a stolen Zorathian feed. Her fingers danced across a holographic keyboard as she manually overrode another enemy subsystem. Primitive species, my ass, she muttered. Let's see how they like fighting blind. Back in the Zorathian fleet, Commander Vexis struggled to make sense of the disaster unfolding around him. His cruiser Iron Will had taken 3 railgun hits already, and now his screens showed nothing but static. Engineering report. Shields are failing, Commander. Hull breaches on decks 12 through. The transmission cut off as another railgun round sheared through the Iron Will's engines. Vexis gripped his console as the ship lurched violently. Then something new appeared on his flickering scanners. A massive energy signature emerging from behind Earth's moon. The USN Avalon decloaked in a shimmer of distorted light, its kilometer-long hull bristling with weapons. But all eyes were drawn to the massive spinal, mounted cannon running its entire length, the Ragnarok Cannon. On the Avalon's bridge, Captain Vance opened a fleet-wide channel. His face appeared on every Zorathian screen that still functioned. "You wanted a demonstration of human strength?" he said calmly. "Watch closely." The Ragnarok Cannon charged with a deep subsonic hum that vibrated through the bones of every nearby crew member. Its emitter glowed crimson, then white, then a blinding blue. Krazak had just enough time to scream full retreat. Before the Avalon fired, a beam of pure annihilation lanced across the void, striking the Zorathian flagship Imperator's will dead center. For one terrifying second, the golden dreadnought shields flared, then collapsed. The beam punched clean through the ship, exiting the other side, and continuing into deep space. The Imperator's will split in two, its halves drifting apart in eerie silence, before the antimatter containment failed. The resulting explosion lit up the night side of Earth brighter than any moon. On the remains of the Iron Will, Vexis stared at the expanding fireball where his admiral's ship had been. His mandibles trembled, a Zorathian sign of utter shock. "By the ancestors," he whispered. "What have we awakened?" Across the battlefield, human ships began emerging from stealth. Not just the massive Avalon, but dozens of smaller frigates and destroyers. They moved with terrifying coordination, herding the panicked Zorathian fleet into kill zones. Lieutenant Mara Cole's voice crackled over Vance's comm. "Sir, Blackwatch teams report successful boarding actions on 12 enemy vessels, planting charges now." Vance nodded. "Make sure they know it was us. I want survivors to tell the story." As the railguns fired another synchronized volley, the Avalon turned its terrifying cannon toward the next largest Zorathian ship. Its captain immediately raised surrender flags, one by one, across the battlefield. Golden Zorathian ships powered down their weapons. The ones that didn't were reduced to floating scrap. In the ruins of his bridge, Commander Vexis finally understood the truth. This wasn't a battle, it was a slaughter, and humanity had been holding back the entire time. He reached for the comm panel with shaking claws. "All remaining ships, stand down." The order went out across the fleet. The mighty Zorathian armada, conquerors of 100 worlds, surrendered to a species they deemed inferior. On Earth, billions watched the skies as the first human victory against the Cosmic Empire blazed overhead, like a second dawn. Commander Vexis gripped the armrests of his command throne as the bridge shuddered. Alarms wailed through the Zorathian flagship's cavernous interior, the deck plates vibrating from near-miss impacts. His secondary heart pounded in his chest, a biological response his species hadn't needed in millennia of conquest. "Report," Vexis barked, his voice cutting through the chaos. The tactical officer's claws trembled over the holographic display. 7th and 9th battle groups annihilated. Commander, the human dreadnought. Their weapons ignore our shields. Vexis watched the feed from the forward scopes. The USN Avalon hung in the void like a specter, its matte black hull absorbing starlight. As he watched, its massive spinal cannon glowed crimson. A beam of pure annihilation lanced out. Another Zorathian battleship vaporized before its shields could react. "Impossible," Vexis whispered. His warriors had crushed 100 species. None had ever pierced their energy screens. On the comms, Admiral Krazak's voice roared across the fleet channel. "All ships concentrate fire on that human vessel. Burn it from the stars." A chorus of acknowledgements echoed, then cut off as new contacts bloomed across the tactical display. "Dozens. Hundreds, Commander." The sensor officer shrieked. Multiple warp signatures emerging from everywhere. Vexis' crest flattened against his skull. Human ships materialized from behind asteroids, from the shadow of Mars, even from within the debris fields of their own destroyed stations. Sleek destroyers with railgun batteries spinning up, blocky carriers disgorging swarms of drones, all marked with the jagged crimson slash of the United Earth Space Navy. Captain Elias Vance's voice crackled across an open channel, calm as a man discussing the weather. "Zorathian Fayed Deconquest Fleet. This is your only warning. Power down weapons and surrender. Krazak's laughter boomed in response. You pitiful creatures. We are the Cosmic Empire, we do not. The transmission cut off as the Avalon's Ragnarok Cannon fired again. Krazak's flagship, the Eternal Dominance, ceased to exist in a flash of white light. Silence gripped the bridge. Vexis found himself staring at the empty space where the Admiral's ship had been. His tactical display updated human boarding pods were already slamming into the surviving Zorathian vessels. Seal all bulkheads, Vexis ordered. Repel boarders too late. The first explosion rocked the flagship's engineering deck, then another and another. Not the controlled detonations of plasma charges. These were messy, violent, radiating heat signatures that made the damage control AI scream warnings. Lieutenant Mara Cole's voice came through the ship's internal comms, cheerful as a schoolteacher. Hey lizard boys, you like playing with fusion reactors? Let me show you what happens when you really overload one. Vexis warriors scrambled to respond, but the humans weren't fighting like any species they'd encountered. No honorable blade duels in the corridors. No attempts to capture key systems. Just running battles through the halls, planting devices, then vanishing into maintenance shafts. A junior officer gasped as his console lit up with incoming data. Commander, the humans. They're not trying to take our ships. They're rigging them to explode. Vexis understood then. This wasn't war as the Zorathians knew it. This was something older, more vicious. On the main viewer, the last image of Krazak's ship dissolved into static. Then Vance's face appeared, his eyes cold. You came for a war, Commander. We brought an extinction event. The channel cut. Across the fleet, Zorathian ships began detonating, not from enemy fire, but from within. Human marines had seeded their reactors with timed nuclear charges, then evacuated. Vexis watched his fleet die, watched as the species they'd called soft and primitive systematically dismantled the mightiest armada the Cosmic Empire had ever sent beyond its borders. His comm officer turned, mandibles quivering. Commander, the humans are hailing us again. Vexis straightened his uniform. Put it through. Vance appeared once more, this time with Cole standing at his shoulder. The woman held up a small device, a Zorathian fleet transponder. Hey Vexi, she said, grinning. Guess what we just plugged into your navigation network? The tactical display updated. Every surviving Zorathian ship's engines flared, not by their cruise command, but by remote override. The entire remaining fleet turned as one, vectoring not toward Earth, but toward the edge of the system, toward home. Vance folded his arms. You've got 24 hours to reach the heliopause after that. He nodded to Cole. She tapped her wrist display. Every Zorathian console on every ship lit up with the same message. Scorched void protocol active. Vexis felt something his species had forgotten long ago. The golden throne room of the Zorathian Emperor, pulsed with crimson light as holographic displays, showed the devastation of their frontier fleets. Emperor Zorathis clenched his fist, crushing the armrest of his biomechanical throne. This cannot be, he growled, his voice echoing through the chamber. A single species has broken our mightiest fleets. Admiral Krazak knelt before him, his once pristine armor now scorched and dented. The human prisoner collar around his neck hummed with restraining energy. My Emperor, he said, voice trembling. They were never weak. We were blind. Zorathis backhanded him across the face, sending the Admiral sprawling. You disgrace our empire with your cowardice. He turned to the gathered warlords. Mobilize the Grand Armada, every warship, every planet. Killer, we will reduce their homeworld to molten slag. On the bridge of the US and Avalon, Captain Elias Vance watched the tactical display as new red icons flooded the system. Well, he muttered, that is a lot of ships. Lieutenant Mara Cole leaned over the console, her fingers flying across the controls. Estimates put their main force at over 3,000 capital-grade vessels. They're pulling everything from the Cygnus front. Dr. Lian Zhao entered, her tablet glowing with schematics. We won't survive a direct engagement, not even with stealth and railguns. Vance exhaled slowly. Then we don't fight fair. He tapped his comm. Engineering, prep the Götterdämmerung Device. Cole's head snapped up. You can't be serious. That is, a stolen Zorathian warp, core modified to destabilize their sun, Zhao finished. Theoretical yield suggests it could trigger a supernova cascade. Vance's jaw tightened. The Emperor just declared total war. We answer in kind. A new voice crackled over the comm. Captain, this is Vexis. The former Zorathian commander's image flickered on screen, his face scarred from battle. I've accessed their secure channels. The Grand Armada will reach Sol in 6 hours. Vance nodded. Then we move now. Set course for the Zorathian homeworld. Cole grabbed his arm. Elias, if we do this, there is no coming back. That device will kill billions. Vance met her gaze. I know. He turned to Zhao. Can we rig it to broadcast a message before detonation? Zhao's fingers danced across her tablet. If we modify the containment field, we could piggyback a transmission on the warp signature, but it'll cut the timer in half. Do it. Vance activated fleet. Wide comms. All ships, this is the Avalon. We're taking the fight to their doorstep. Blackwatch fleet will cover our approach. Once we're in position, we end this. As the Avalon surged into warp, Krazak's voice came through the comm again. You're making a mistake. Human, the Emperor will never surrender. Vance smirked. Then he'll die braver than most. The jump was rough. Zorathian interdiction fields strained the engines, but the Avalon broke through, emerging above the gleaming spires of the Imperial capital. Alarms blared as defensive batteries locked on. Shields at Faye, Cole shouted. Deploy countermeasures, Vance ordered. Zhao, how long on that device? 7 minutes to critical mass. The Avalon shuddered as plasma fire raked its hull. A proximity alert screamed. A Zorathian dreadnought moved to block their path. Vance gripped his console. All batteries, fire at will. The Avalon's railguns roared, punching through the dreadnought's armor. Atmosphere vented into space as the enemy ship listed. But more were closing in. 3 minutes, Zhao warned. Cole's screen lit up. Incoming transmission. It is the Emperor. The holographic display flickered to life, revealing Emperor Zorathis in full battle regalia. You dare bring your pitiful ship to my homeworld? Vance stood straight. We brought a message. Zorathis sneered. Your defiance changes nothing. My armada will burn your species from the galaxy. Vance nodded to Zhao, who tapped a command. The Emperor's own face was replaced by footage. Krazak kneeling before human forces, entire fleet surrendering. The shattered remains of Zorathian warships adrift in space. The transmission spread across every Zorathian channel, every screen in the Empire. Vance's voice boomed through the broadcast. This is Captain Elias Vance of the United Earth's Stellar Navy. You thought we were weak. You were wrong. Zorathis's eyes widened as the realization struck. You wouldn't. 2 minutes, Zhao yelled. The Avalon shook violently as a direct hit tore through its lower decks. Warning lights flashed red across the bridge. Cole grabbed Vance's arm. We need to go. Vance didn't move. Not yet. He kept his eyes locked on the Emperor's image. You have one chance. Stand down, disband your fleets, or we burn your empire to ashes. Silence hung for a heartbeat. Then the Emperor did something no Zorathian had ever witnessed. He hesitated. 30 seconds. Zhao's voice was tight. Vance didn't blink. Your move, Emperor. The transmission cut. The Avalon systems screamed as the Götterdämmerung Device reached critical. Then, miraculously, the Zorathian ship stopped firing. A single order flashed across every channel. Cease hostilities. Vance let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Zhao, shut it down. She worked frantically. Containment stabilized, device neutralized. Cole slumped in her chair. Holy hell, did we just win? Vance watched as the Zorathian fleet powered down their weapons. No, he said quietly. We just made sure they'll never forget what happens when you threaten Earth. On the view screen, the Emperor's throne room appeared again. Zorathis stood, his golden armor dimmed. When he spoke, the words echoed across the stars. "We yield." The Avalon shuddered as another plasma volley slammed into its reinforced hull. Warning klaxons wailed through the command deck, red emergency lights painting the crew in bloody hues. Captain Vance gripped his armrest, teeth clenched as the deck plates vibrated beneath his boots. "Structural integrity at Faye," reported Ensign Cho, her voice tight. "Forward shields gone. They're targeting the Ragnarok Cannon." Vance didn't need the tactical display to know what that meant. Through the cracked viewport, the Zorathian homeworld loomed, a swirling marble of gold and crimson. The Götterdämmerung Device hummed in the ship's belly, its stolen warp, core pulsing with unstable energy. "Time to detonation?" Vance asked. 7 minutes, sir," replied Lieutenant Mara Cole from the weapons station. Her fingers danced across the console, bypassing safeties. "Assuming we live that long." A new wave of Zorathian interceptors streaked toward them, their wing-mounted plasma casters glowing hot. The Avalon's point defense guns spat tungsten rounds, shredding 3 before the others broke formation. "Evasive pattern Delta," Vance barked. The ship lurched sideways, gravity compensators groaning. A near miss scorched the port armor. Commander Vexis, former Zorathian warlord, now defector, stumbled onto the bridge, his golden exosuit dented from a recent firefight. "You're insane," he hissed, gripping a support beam. "Even if you reach the star, the backlash will vaporize your ship." Vance didn't look at him. Calculated risk. Risk? Vexis's voice cracked. "This is suicide." On the main screen, the Zorathian Grand Armada mobilized, hundreds of city killer dreadnoughts peeling away from orbital defenses. Their Emperor's flagship, the Eternal Conqueror, led the charge. Its spinal, mounted annihilation cannon, charging with eerie blue light. Cole smirked. "Took 'em long enough to get serious." 5 minutes to detonation, Cho announced. The Avalon shook violently as a plasma torpedo detonated amidships. Sparks erupted from overhead panels. A junior officer screamed as a conduit exploded, showering the deck with molten metal. Engineering reports critical damage to the starboard thrusters. A comms officer yelled over the chaos. "We're losing speed." Vance activated the fleet channel. "All remaining Blackwatch units, form on me, cover the Avalon's approach." Static, then broken replies from dying ships. "Mjolnir engaging, Valkyrie holding the line. Odin's spear is," the transmission cut off in a burst of static. Vexis watched the tactical display with widening eyes. "Your ships, they're throwing themselves into the enemy's guns." Vance finally met his gaze. "We know." Another impact, the lights flickered. The Avalon listed to port, its artificial gravity stuttering. Crew members floated briefly before crashing back down. 3 minutes, Cho said, her voice hollow. The Eternal Conqueror filled the view screen now, its massive cannon glowing brighter. A targeting lock alarm blared. "They've got a firing solution," Cole shouted. Vance gripped the comm. "All hands brace for." The universe turned white, but the expected annihilation never came. When the glare faded, the Eternal Conqueror hung motionless, its weapon dark. The entire Zorathian armada had stopped firing. "What?" Vance whispered. Then the Emperor's face appeared on screen, regal, golden, skinned, but with something new in his eyes. "Fear. You would truly doom us all," the Emperor demanded, his voice trembling. Vance straightened. "We warned you." A tense silence. The Götterdämmerung Device counted down. 5 seconds, the Emperor's shoulders sagged. "Stand down your weapon." Cole's fingers hovered over the abort sequence. Vance didn't move. "Say it," Vance growled. The Emperor closed his eyes. "We surrender." The bridge crew erupted in cheers. Cole slammed the abort command. The Götterdämmerung Device powered down with a dying whine. Vexis collapsed against a console, laughing hysterically. You bluffed. Vance allowed himself a small smile. Not entirely. He pointed to the tactical display emerging from warp. Hundreds of fresh human warships, guns silent but primed. The rest of the Blackwatch fleet, Vance said, right on schedule. The Emperor's face paled. You were never going to detonate it. Cole holstered her sidearm. Course we were. But first we wanted you to watch. Outside, the human fleet took formation around the Avalon, their railguns tracking every Zorathian ship. The message was clear. The war was over, and humanity had won. The holographic projection flickered to life above the ruined throne room of the Zorathian palace. Every surviving screen across the Empire displayed the same image. Captain Elias Vance standing amidst shattered golden pillars, his combat boots crunching on what remained of the Emperor's obsidian floor. Behind him, Lieutenant Mara Cole kept her pulse rifle trained on the kneeling form of Emperor Zorathis himself, his once pristine armor now scorched and dented. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Senate watched in stunned silence. The transmission reached every corner of known space, human, Zorathian, and neutral systems alike. Vance didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. We could have killed you all. The words hung in the air like the debris floating outside the shattered palace windows. Every last warship, every colony, even your homeworld. He tapped his wrist display, and a schematic of the G-fated Detonate device appeared, hovering above his palm. This would have turned your sun into a supernova. We built it from your own warp core designs. The Emperor's four eyes widened, his breathing apparatus hissing as he struggled to comprehend. Then why? Because we're not you. Cole's voice cut through the chamber like a vibroblade. She kicked aside a fallen Zorathian honor guard's energy pike. You came to our system thinking we'd roll over, thought your big guns and shiny armor made you invincible. She leaned down, her visor retracting to show the Emperor her human eyes. But you forgot one thing. Vance stepped forward, his armored glove closing around the hologram, crushing the superweapon schematic into pixels. We don't fight for conquest, we fight to survive. He turned to face the unseen galactic audience. And today, we proved we can do more than survive. In the Senate chambers, light, years away, ambassadors from 100 species shifted uncomfortably. The Vespidian delegates' antennae trembled, the Cerulean floating orbs dimmed. On screen, Vance gestured, and the view zoomed out to show the full devastation. The smoking ruins of the Imperial Palace, the human warships hovering unscathed above the planet, the thousands of Zorathian vessels drifting powerless in high orbit. Emperor Zorathis coughed, black fluid leaking from his mandibles. You could take everything. His voice carried across the Empire, the mighty conqueror reduced to a whisper. Why stop? Cole holstered her rifle with deliberate slowness. Because now, she reached down and hauled the Emperor to his feet with a grunt, her powered armor whining at the strain. You'll never underestimate humans again. The transmission cut to a live feed from Earth's lunar shipyards. Row upon row of new dreadnoughts gleamed under construction lights, each bearing the scars of battle, each being repaired by human and Zorathian engineers working side by side. Vance's voice returned, softer now. The Cosmic Empire ends today not because we destroyed it. The camera panned to show Zorathian crewmen saluting human officers, former enemies sharing rations in a mess hall, because we showed you a better way. On the bridge of the US and Avalon, Commander Vexis watched the feed with his remaining eye. His clawed hands trembled as he input the final codes. Across the fleet, Zorathian ships powered down their weapons in unison. The great Golden Armada, undefeated for 1,000 years, surrendered without another shot fired. Back in the throne room, Vance extended a hand to the Emperor. For a long moment, the alien ruler stared at the human's unarmored palm. Then, with a shuddering breath, he reached out and grasped it in the human fashion. The Galactic Senate erupted. Some species cheered, others recoiled in terror. A few began emergency sessions to reassess their own defenses. But one message spread through every diplomatic channel, every military frequency, every civilian news network. The age of the Cosmic Empire was over. The age of humanity had begun. In the ruins of what was once the most feared palace in the galaxy, Mara Cole cracked her neck and grinned at her captain. Think they got the message. Vance looked up at the stars visible through the broken dome. Somewhere out there, Earth waited, and beyond it, 1,000 worlds now knew the truth. Oh, he said, wiping Zorathian blood from his armor. They got it. The ruins of the Zorathian throne room glittered under the harsh light of reconstruction drones. Captain Elias Vance stood at the center of the cracked obsidian platform, his boots crunching on shattered war banners. The Galactic Senate's holographic delegates flickered around him, their alien faces unreadable, but their postures tense. Behind Vance, Lieutenant Mara Cole adjusted the sling on her plasma, scorched arm, her eyes never leaving the kneeling Emperor. You could have killed us all, Emperor Zorathis rasped. His golden carapace cracked where the ceremonial armor had been torn away. Why stop the device? Vance tapped the insignia on his chest, a silver earth wrapped in barbed wire. This isn't the symbol of conquerors. The words carried across the silent chamber. It is a reminder of every colony you burned, every life you took. A murmur rippled through the holograms. The Vespidian delegates' antennae twitched violently. You had their homeworld defenseless. The rules of war don't apply, Cole interrupted. She kicked her broken Zorathian energy pike toward the Emperor. It clattered against his knee. You made that clear at New Halifax. Dr. Lin Zhao stepped forward, her tablet displaying the frozen countdown of the G-fettered Detonate device. We recalculated the yield mid-descent, enough to sterilize your capital continent. She swiped the screen. Instead, we broadcast this. The throne room screens flickered to life. Footage showed Admiral Krazak, once the pride of the Cosmic Empire, signing the instrument of surrender aboard the Avalon. His claws trembled as he pressed them to the biometric pad. Vexis limped into the light, his remaining forelimb gripping a human medkit. I told them, the defected commander said to the Senate. I warned them what happens when you corner humans. His compound eyes focused on Zorathis. They don't break, they escalate. The Tarkalan delegate's frills flushed crimson. This is madness. You expect us to believe humanity developed planet, killers just to, what, prove a point? Vance activated his wrist projector. A star map bloomed, thousands of red dots marking Zorathian fleet positions at the moment. The device aborted. We hacked your entire defense network, every ship, every planetary shield. The dots vanished one by one. Could have turned your empire into a graveyard, chose not to. Silence heavier than neutronium settled over the chamber. The Emperor's mandibles worked soundlessly. Cole walked to the edge of the platform, staring down at the assembled Zorathian warlords. Their weapon hands twitched, but none reached for their sidearms. Here is the new rules, she said. Disband the Cosmic Empire, stand down your fleets, and next time you think about testing humanity. She grinned, showing teeth. Remember, we held back. The holograms flickered out one by one, systems acknowledging the terms. Only the Cerelion ambassador remained, its floating ocular orbs pulsing slowly. This changes everything, it whispered. No species has ever shown restraint after achieving total victory. Vance unclipped his sidearm. The Zorathian guards tensed until he flipped it grip first toward the Emperor. Keep it souvenir from the war you lost by winning. 3 standard cycles later, the red giant Sigma Draconis painted Earth's orbital docks in bloody light. Former Zorathian dreadnoughts, now stripped of weapons, drifted alongside human cruisers, their golden hulls repainted with the USN crest. Aboard the rebuilt Avalon, Vance studied the tactical display where the Cosmic Empire's sigil once dominated. Now it showed a simple alliance network with Earth at the center. Vexis entered, his new prosthetic limb clicking against the deck. Still getting used to the view, the ex-commander admitted, staring at the fleet. All those ships, taking orders from primates. Cole tossed him a ration bar from the mess. Better than eating plasma fire. You never answered my question. Vexis said, catching the bar with his organic claw. That strategy of letting us think we'd won, then striking where we felt safest. What do you call it? Vance zoomed the display out, showing the Milky Way in its entirety. Peace, he said, the hard way. On the lower decks, human and Zorathian engineers worked side by side to install the Avalon's new warp core. One tech, a young human woman with Nova Scotia tattoos, handed a fusion spanner to her Zorathian counterpart. The warrior hesitated, then took the tool with a nod. And across the galaxy, from the trading posts of Rigel to the methane oceans of Kolinar, the words, human war machine, were spoken with respect.